I'm Sarah Thompson, 28. My life has been a whirlwind of family conflicts that erupted at my dad and stepmom's 25th anniversary celebration in Boise, Idaho. Imagine this, I'm engaged to my fiancé, the love of my life, and we're mapping out our future together, but my parents are convinced he's the ideal match, not for me, but for my jobless, leeching younger sister. If you were my age, how would you handle family meddling in your closest relationships? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Looking back, it all started when I was just a child in our Boise home around 2007. I was 10 years old and everything changed in an instant. My mom had been battling a long illness, and one day she was gone, leaving me and my dad to navigate the emptiness alone. I remember clinging to him those first months, hoping we'd find a way through the grief as a team. He was my anchor, the one person who understood the depth of our loss. But about a year later, in 2008, he brought home Linda, his new wife. I was barely 11, still raw from missing my mom when she moved in, and everything shifted. Linda didn't waste time making her mark. She rearranged the furniture, set strict new rules about chores and meals, and made it clear that her priorities were elsewhere. Then came the baby, my half-sister Megan, born that same year. Dad called her his little miracle, and from that moment, the house felt different, like I was on the outside looking in. Linda took charge with an iron hand. She'd watch me closely critiquing how I folded the laundry or what I chose for breakfast, her voice sharp and unyielding. But with Megan, it was all warmth, soft, smiles, gentle coos, endless patience as she fussed over the newborn. I'd overhear her whispering to Dad about how special Megan was, how she deserved the best, while I was expected to toe the line without complaint. It stung deep, that favoritism, but at 11, I didn't have the words to fight it. I just tried harder, thinking maybe if I was perfect, things would even out. Dad could have stepped in. He saw it all the way Linda brushed me off the cold stairs when I needed comfort. I'd catch his eye across the dinner table, silently pleading for him to say something to defend me. But he'd just lower his gaze to his plate, avoiding the conflict. One evening, I mustered the courage to ask him why he let her treat me that way. He sighed, rubbing his temples wearily, and muttered that he just wanted a peaceful house. No apology, no action, just those words that felt like a door slamming shut. It broke something in me, that choice of his to prioritize harmony over his own daughter. As the days turned into weeks, I started pulling back. I'd stay late at school whenever I could, burying myself in books to escape the tension at home. The living room, once a place of shared stories with Mom, now echoed with Linda's commands and Megan's cries. I'd sit in my room staring at the walls, feeling like an intruder in the space that used to be mine. Linda's control only tightened. She'd hover over meals, portioning out food with a critical eye for me while Megan got whatever she whimpered for. It wasn't just the rules, it was the unspoken message that I didn't matter as much. Even then, I sensed the seeds of resentment growing. Megan was too young to understand, but Linda's whispers planted ideas early. I'd try to help with the baby, offering to hold her or read a story, but Linda would wave me away, saying she had it handled. Dad, desperate to keep things smooth, never pushed back. By the time I hit 12, the house felt divided with me on one side and their little unit on the other. I learned to fend for myself, making my own lunches and handling homework without asking for help, all while watching the bond between Linda and Megan flourish. Those early years shaped everything that followed. The grief from losing Mom mixed with the isolation, pushing me to build walls. I'd lie awake at night wondering if things would ever feel fair again. Little did I know this was just the beginning of the comparisons and pressures that would define our family dynamic. As I grew, so did the unfairness, leading me to seek my own path away from the chaos. By my middle school years in Boise, around 2012 to 2014, the comparisons had begun turning home into a battlefield of expectations. That phase of life from about age 12 to 18 felt like walking a tightrope in our Boise household. School became my refuge and my proving ground, but even there, the shadows from home followed. Linda's control extended beyond chores. She scrutinized my every achievement, twisting them into weapons against Megan. I'd bring home straight A's, proud of the late nights I'd spent studying under my desk lamp, and she'd pin my report card on the fridge right next to Megan's struggling C's. Then in front of us both, she'd sigh and say something like, "Why can't you aim higher like your sister?" It was directed at Megan, but the words cut me too, making my hard work feel like a burden. Megan was only 6 when this started, too young to process the pressure. I'd see her small face crumple her eyes, darting to me with a mix of envy and hurt. By 9, around 2017, those glances turned into glares across the dinner table, burning with unspoken blame. I wasn't trying to outdo her. I just wanted to make Dad proud, to carve out something solid in the midst of the chaos. Joining the debate team and running track gave me outlets to debate, sharpened my words. Track let me pound out frustrations on the pavement. I'd come home with medals or awards, my chest swelling a bit, only for Linda to snap that I was showing off, making Megan feel small. It wasn't fair, but I swallowed the hurt, pushing myself harder. I'd offer to help Megan with homework, sitting at the kitchen table with books spread out, but she'd shove them away, muttering that I wasn't her mom. Those rejections stung like salt in an open wound, but I kept trying, hoping for some sisterly bond to form. Linda fueled the fire, signing Megan up for every activity I excelled. In debate, meetings, track practices, even the school play, despite Megan's clear lack of interest. "You'd better keep up with your sister," Linda would lecture, her voice sharp as a knife. Megan tried, at first stumbling through speeches or lagging on the track, but she couldn't match my pace. Instead of gentle encouragement, Linda turned the failure back on me, accusing me of hogging the spotlight. Dad witnessed it all from his seat at the table, his fork paused mid-bite as tensions rose. I'd look to him waiting for that paternal intervention, but he'd rub his temples and stay quiet, choosing peace over protection once again. His silence felt like betrayal, a quiet endorsement of Linda's games. Once, after a particularly harsh comparison during dinner, my latest debate win highlighted against Megan's dropped lines in the play, I pulled him aside in the kitchen. "Why do you let her do this?" I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed deeply, avoiding my eyes, and said he couldn't fight with Linda. It would only make things worse. That was it. No standing up for me, no acknowledgement of the unfairness. It deepened the rift, leaving me to navigate the emotional minefield alone. As high school ramped up, the obsession grew. I'd stay up late, books piled high, memorizing facts for tests or practicing sprints in the backyard under the Boise streetlights. Success came more awards, better times on the track, but so did the guilt. I'd hear Megan crying in her room, sometimes muffled sobs through the wall, and wonder if my efforts were the cause. Linda's words echoed, "You're making your sister feel bad." I wasn't aiming to hurt anyone. I just needed to build something for myself away from the favoritism. Family dinners turned into silent ordeals, with Megan slamming doors or ignoring me for days after another comparison. By the end of those years, around 2017, the damage was clear. Megan's resentment had taken root, her pushes away becoming sharper. I'd retreat to my room or linger at school events, finding solace in friends and activities outside the home. The house, once a place of potential healing, now pulsed with unspoken rivalries. Dad's ongoing silence only amplified it, his jaw tight but lips sealed. I felt the weight of it all, the unfair expectations pressing down, but it pushed me toward independence. Little by little, I distanced myself, focusing on my path while the tensions simmered, waiting for Megan's breaking point to come. Those struggles taught me resilience, even if they left scars. Looking back now at 60 or beyond, you might recall similar family pulls where one child's light seemed to dim another's. It shaped who I became, forcing me to stand on my own earlier than most. But as Megan entered her teens, the rebellion I sensed brewing finally erupted, pulling our fragile dynamic even further apart. As Megan hit her teens around 2023 in Boise, her struggles became undeniable, and I was building my own path away from the chaos. Those years from Megan at 15 to 17 and me pushing through my mid-20s marked a turning point in our fractured family. Boise's quiet suburbs hid the growing storm at home, where Megan's response to the endless comparisons finally boiled over. By high school, the pressure Linda had heaped on her to match my grades, my track times, my debate wins had worn her down. Megan wasn't studying more. Instead, she rebelled in ways that scared me. I'd hear her sneaking out late, the creak of the back door echoing through the house, and catch the faint smell of alcohol on her breath when she stumbled back before dawn. She was barely 15 when it started whispering to herself as she tiptoed up the stairs, trying to hide it from Linda's watchful eyes. My room was next to her, so I'd lie awake, heart pounding, wondering if I should intervene. But every time I tried talking to her the next day, sitting her down with a cup of tea, offering gentle advice, she'd snap back, eyes flashing, "Leave me alone, you're not my mom." It hurt, that rejection, but I got it. She was drowning in expectations, always measured against my achievements. Linda kept the comparisons going, pinning Megan's circled C's next to my A's on the fridge, muttering that she needed to try harder like her sister. The crash came when Megan was 17 in 2025. She went to one of those wild high school parties in a Boise backyard, the kind with too many kids and no real supervision. She drank far too much, passing out on the grass until a friend's mom found her and called for help. I was in my senior year of college living on campus when Dad's call came, his voice shaking over the line. "Your sister's in the ER." I dropped everything, racing to the hospital, my pulse thundering. There in the sterile room with beeping machines, I found Linda sobbing by Megan's bedside, clutching her hand like a lifeline. Dad stood in the corner, head bowed, saying nothing as usual. The doctors assured us Megan would recover. It was alcohol poisoning, a close call but not fatal. It should have been a wake-up call for everyone, a chance to reset. But Linda flipped entirely. Overnight, she went from drill sergeant to doting enabler, treating Megan like fragile glass. Gifts poured in, new clothes, piling up in her room, a shiny new smartphone she hadn't earned, even $150 bills slipped into her pocket for whatever whim. Megan didn't have to do a thing anymore. Linda handled her laundry, cooked her favorites, even penned excuses for missed schoolwork. I'd visit during breaks and see it unfold, Megan lounging on the couch, scrolling endlessly on her phone while Linda fussed around her like a servant. "She's been through enough," Linda would say, shooting me a glare, as if I'd somehow caused the mess. I couldn't wrap my head around it. My sister nearly dies, and the fix is to spoil her rotten. It felt like rewarding the breakdown. Dad watched from the sidelines, his jaw clenched tight, but he never spoke up. I'd catch his eye, hoping for some sign of intervention, but he'd just look away. One afternoon in the kitchen, I pulled him aside, my voice low but firm. "Why don't you do something? This isn't helping anyone." He rubbed his eyes, sighing heavily. "I can't argue with Linda, Sarah. It'll only make things worse." That familiar deflection hit like a punch, his fear of conflict leaving me to carry the weight alone. The unfairness gnawed at me, Linda's full attention on Megan, now barely acknowledging my presence when I walked in. I'd enter the house to her fussing over another pair of sneakers for Megan, praising her for nothing while I got a cold nod at best. Megan leaned into it, smirking at me when Linda wasn't looking, as if she'd claimed victory in our unspoken rivalry. I felt erased, pushed further out. The hospital scare could have bridged us, but it only widened the divide. I stopped visiting as often, skipping those tense dinners to avoid the stares. Instead, I threw myself into my own world. College wrapped up, and I landed a solid marketing job in Boise, renting a small apartment that I budgeted carefully from my paychecks. It was modest, nothing flashy, but it was mine. A space free from the drama. That's when I met Michael, kind and steady, the opposite of the home turmoil. We'd been together a short while by then, spending evenings in quiet coffee shops talking about dreams and futures far from the family mess. He listened as I vented, his presence a balm. I still cared for Dad, but relying on him wasn't an option anymore. Linda's favoritism and Megan's growing dependence suffocated me. I was done fitting into their mold. Deep down, though, I knew the issues weren't resolved. They simmered, waiting for the next spark, especially as Megan's eyes turned toward Michael. With my relationship solid after 2 years, in 2025, Boise Megan crossed lines that pushed us to our limits. The lead up to that anniversary, spanning late 2024 into early 2025, felt like a slow-building pressure cooker in our family circle. I was 27, turning 28, settled in my marketing role and cozy apartment, while Megan, around 17, had fully embraced her role as the pampered one. Linda bankrolled her every whim, an apartment in Boise decked with fancy furniture, daily takeout, splurges on luxury bags, all while dismissing my self-reliance as unnecessary. "Megan needs time to find her way," Linda would say, as if my hard-earned stability was a given. But then, Megan set her sights on Michael. We'd been together 2 years, our bond built on trust and shared visions, a steady anchor amid the family storm. At gatherings, she'd hover too close, laughing overly loud at his jokes, her fingers brushing his sleeve in accidental touches. One evening, glancing at his phone, I spotted a text from her, "Hey, coffee sometime, just us." My stomach dropped like a stone. I confronted her the next day in the kitchen, voice steady despite the rage. She shrugged, that smirk playing on her lips. "It's no big deal, Sarah. Relax." But her gaze lingered on him too long, her motives transparent. Anger mixed with betrayal. How could my own sister sink to this? The flashpoint hit at our family Christmas party in 2024. Linda had decked the Boise home with a sparkling tree and packed the dining table with relatives. I brought Michael, hoping for a calm night. But during dessert, Linda raised her glass, her voice dripping sweetness. Megan's grown into such a lovely young woman. She'd make a perfect partner for someone like Michael. My fork halted midair, the room buzzing with awkward shifts. Megan grinned, leaning nearer to him while he tensed beside me. Relatives exchanged glances, but Dad just stared at his plate, his silence, a fresh wound sharper than Linda's words. I held my composure until we left, but the drive home was silent fury. The next day at a dim Boise coffee shop, I poured it all out to Michael, gripping my mug. Linda's shoving Megan at you, and Dad lets it slide. His face hardened, nodding. It's twisted, Sarah. Megan's in on it, and Linda's pulling the strings. He vowed no interest in her advances, his commitment solid. We need boundaries, he said firmly. No more events unless essential. I agreed to weightlifting, though the hurt lingered. We cut back contact, dodging the manipulation and games. Linda ignored the signals. Months later, her calls ramped up about their 25th anniversary party voicemails urgent. Sarah, you and Michael must come. It's a milestone for your dad and me. I let them go unanswered, but she persisted, preaching family unity. One message twisted the knife. Megan's eager to see you both. The thought of her after the flirting made my skin crawl. I replied vaguely that we'd think it over, but it smelled like a setup. Michael and I hashed it out during a cool spring walk in a Boise Park, pebbles crunching underfoot. This screams trap, I said, stomach nodding. He kicked a stone, eyes serious. If we go, stay alert. No letting them trample us. But guilt-nagged Dad was still Dad, his potential drift a ache. For his sake, we decided to attend the swanky restaurant bash, but I'd rehearse responses mentally picturing Megan's flirts or Linda's digs. Michael was less restrained. If they push, I'm not holding back, he warned. Then came the request, a text from Linda asking for $2,500 toward party costs. I saw through it. Megan's habits were draining them. I'd scrape by on my salary. No way I'd fund her laziness. Absolutely not, I texted back. Megan should work if funds are tight. Linda fired off. You're abandoning family, Sarah. My hands shook, deleting it. Family didn't mean enabling freeloading. She switched tactics, group texts, urging attendance for unity, ending with, it's what Robert deserves. The note arrived days later, her cursive pleading for us to join, claiming it'd mend bonds. I tossed it, but guilt simmered. In the park again, Michael and I debated. She's guilting you. Megan might try something. I nodded tight inside. But skipping could lose Dad forever. His eyes softened. For him we'll go, but we stand firm. Sleepless nights followed, dreading the clash. Then the bombshell Michael, sorting an old phone I'd lent Linda years back, found texts with a married neighbor, suggestive winking emojis, secret meetups from before Megan's hospital stay. His jaw tight, he showed me. This changes things, Sarah. Linda's not the saint she pretends. My heart raced a gut punch, but leverage too. That evening's park walk turned strategic. We hold back unless they force it, he whispered. If they cross, we drop this. Anger edged out nerves. I agreed. The party loomed, but with this I felt armed, not the overlooked one anymore, but ready to claim my ground. Stepping into the Boise restaurant for the 25th anniversary in 2025, I felt the tension crackle like a storm about to break. That evening marked the culmination of years of simmering resentments with me at 28, finally ready to draw lines in our tangled family web. The venue was elegant chandeliers, casting a soft glow over crisp linen tables, relatives chatter blending with gentle music as we celebrated Dad and Linda's milestone. My pulse raced as Michael and I found our seats, my eyes sweeping the room for signs of trouble. Linda sat at the head table, radiant in a shimmering silver dress, while Dad looked worn next to her, his shoulders slightly slumped. Megan, in a sparkling sequined outfit, caught my gaze and offered a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. I squeezed Michael's hand under the table, bracing for what we'd prepared for. The setup hit fast. Linda had arranged the seating deliberately, placing Megan right beside Michael. My sister didn't hesitate, leaning in close to murmur something low, her laughter cutting sharp through the ambient noise. Then came the napkin drop, a classic ploy. She let it slip to the floor, nudging Michael to retrieve it. As he handed it back, her fingers grazed his, lingering just a beat too long. My chest tightened, heat rising in my cheeks, but I held my tongue, observing the play unfold. Michael shifted uncomfortably, his posture stiff, while relatives nearby exchanged subtle glances, sensing the undercurrent. Linda wasted no time escalating. She stood clinking her glass with a fork, drawing the room's attention. "I want a toast, Megan," she announced, her tone overly sweet like honey masking venom. She's blossomed into such a vibrant young woman, someone any man would be lucky to have. Her eyes lingered pointedly on Michael, a hush falling over the tables as the implication sank in. Megan batted her lashes, soaking up the spotlight, her confidence swelling. It was a blatant echo of the Christmas fiasco, pushing her as the better fit right in front of me. The room seemed to hold its breath, relatives leaning in or clutching their drinks, waiting for the ripple. Dad stared at his hands, his familiar silence, a sting that fueled my resolve. I'd had enough the years of favoritism, the enabling, the outright betrayal of boundaries. My hands trembled as I rose, but my voice came out firm, loud enough to carry. "Stop it, Linda! Your bias has gone on too long. You lift Megan up while shoving me aside, and now you're urging her to pursue my fiancé. It's wrong, and it ends here." Gasps rippled through the crowd, forks clattering softly against plates. Megan's face flushed crimson, her poise cracking as she shrank back in her chair. I turned to her, my gaze steady. "And you, Megan, you know this is disrespectful. Back off." Linda's mouth opened ready with a retort, but I cut her off sharp. "No more defenses. You've both overstepped for the last time." The air grew thick, charged with the weight of unspoken truths finally voiced. Relatives murmured, some nodding subtly in agreement, others wide-eyed in shock. Michael stood then, his presence a solid anchor beside me, his expression calm but edged. The room froze, further anticipation hanging heavy. I felt a surge of validation standing there, no longer the silent sufferer, but claiming my space. The emotional shift hit me from fuming restraint to empowered clarity. For years, I'd swallowed the hurt, but calling it out brought a rush of relief, like exhaling after holding my breath too long. At 60 or older, you might recognize that moment, the one where quiet endurance gives way to firm boundaries, protecting what's yours. Dad remained mute, his head bowed low, the silence louder than any words. Jason, my cousin, who'd always observed from the edges, set his glass down with a soft clink, his face thoughtful. The confrontation hung in the balance, the family's facade cracking under the truth. Linda searched the faces around her, seeking support that wasn't there. It was the breaking I dreaded and needed, paving the way for the revelations to come. In the charged silence of the Boise party in 2025, Michael's words shattered the facade we'd long endured. The moment hung heavy in that elegant restaurant with me at 28, feeling the shift from confrontation to raw exposure. Chandeliers flickered overhead, casting shadows on the linen tables as relatives froze, their chatter dying to whispers. Michael's voice cut through, steady and unflinching. "Linda, you're hardly one to play matchmaker, not when you've been slipping around with a neighbor behind Robert's back." The room iced over jaws, dropping eyes widening like a collective slap. Gasps escaped from aunts and uncles, some leaning forward in their chairs, others clutching glasses tightly as if to steady themselves. Linda's face drained of color, her radiant poise crumbling into pallor. "That's a lie," she stammered, her voice wavering like a cracked bell, but the denial lacked force, her hands fidgeting with her napkin. Michael pressed on his tone, even but pointed. "We saw the texts, late-night arrangements, flirty messages, all of it. You've betrayed Robert, and it's no secret anymore." The air thickened, charged with the gravity of the revelation. Relatives exchanged stunned glances, murmurs rippling like waves, wide-eyed stares at Linda, some shaking heads in disbelief. Dad's head snapped up, his eyes locking on her with a mix of shock and deep pain etching across his features. His shoulders already slumped seemed to sag further under the weight. Jason, who'd been quietly watching from his seat, always the observer in our family messes, set his drink down with a deliberate clink. He'd stayed neutral for years, but now he spoke up, his voice calm yet firm. "Sarah's right," he said, glancing around the table. "Linda, you've sidelined her for ages, pouring everything into Megan. And this pushing her at Michael, it's out of line. Those texts, you owe explanations to all of us." His words landed heavy a blow that echoed my own frustrations. Linda scanned the faces, desperately hunting for allies, but found only averted eyes and tight lips. Megan's bravado vanished. Her eyes welled with tears, cheeks flushed as she hunched in her chair, the attention she'd craved now a spotlight of shame. The relatives' whispers grew, some dissecting the affair, rumors, others muttering about the favoritism we'd all seen but rarely named. It was vindication in motion, the truth peeling back layers of pretense. Linda tried to rally, muttering about misunderstandings and twisted contexts, but her voice faltered, conviction absent. She grabbed her purse with jerky movements, signaling to Megan sharply. "We're leaving," she snapped, her tone brittle like breaking glass. Megan followed head down, dodging the judgmental stares as they hurried toward the exit. The glass doors swung shut behind them with a soft thud, sealing their abrupt departure. The room buzzed anew, hushed conversations erupting, as relatives picked apart the drama questions about the tech's sympathy for Dad, shakes of heads over the years of imbalance. Dad didn't stir his posture, defeated silence, amplifying the fallout. Michael took my hand under the table, his grip warm and reassuring, grounding me in the chaos. For the first time, a lightness washed over me, as if the exposed secrets had cleared space to breathe. The emotional rush hit unburdened at last, a blend of vindication and quiet pity for the mess they'd wrought. At 60 or beyond, you might know that feeling, the relief, when hidden truths surface shifting power without a shout. It wasn't joy in their downfall, but validation after years overlooked. The party's facade lay in ruins, but for me it marked freedom's start even as the aftershocks loomed on the horizon. After the Boise party explosion in 2025, Megan's behavior spiraled, forcing us to draw hard lines. In the weeks and months following that night, late 2025, I was still 28 navigating the fallout with a mix of resolve and weariness. The restaurant drama had cracked open the family's secrets, but Megan didn't back down. If anything, the public humiliation fueled her fire. She started flooding Michael's phone with texts, a barrage that swung from flirty innuendos to outright venom. One came at 2 a.m, "You'll regret picking her." He showed me the screen, his expression, grim the words, glowing in the dim light of our apartment. Then she escalated, showing up unannounced at our Boise place one evening. We found her leaning against the door, eyes glassy and unfocused, her voice slurring as she demanded to talk to Michael alone. "You owe me that much," she insisted, swaying slightly. My heart hammered. I pushed past her key in hand and told her to go. She laughed it off, bitter and defiant, but backed away when Michael warned he'd call the authorities. It was the final push. We couldn't ignore the obsession anymore. The next week, Michael and I headed to the courthouse filing for a restraining order with a stack of evidence, those harassing texts, logs of her apartment visit, timestamps marking the escalation. The process dragged, paperwork and statements blurring into tense days, but the judge granted it, barring Megan from contact or nearing our home. For a brief moment, I thought it might stick a legal shield, restoring peace. But 2 weeks later, she defied it, lingering in the parking lot of my small marketing firm in Boise. A coworker spotted her first, alerting me. I called the police without hesitation. They arrived, swiftly cuffing her on the spot as her defiance melted into wide-eyed panic. At the hearing, the judge was stern, ordering mandatory therapy for her obsessive patterns. Linda, seated in the courtroom with a tight face, got hit with hefty legal fees to cover the proceedings, her usual swagger absent as the gavel fell. The blow extended beyond the courtroom. Boise's tight-knit community started turning away. Neighbors whispered about Linda's affair, old friends skipping her from guest lists. At a local community fundraiser I attended, I overheard snippets. "Linda enabled that girl too long. Now look at the mess." Her circle shrank, reputation frayed by the gossip. Megan faced the same shun. Her former friends distanced, avoiding the taint of her actions. It was a quiet, unraveling consequences catching up without fanfare. I felt a strange cocktail vindication for the boundaries and forced pity for the self-made downfall. Meanwhile, Dad hit his limit. One quiet afternoon, he called me to a diner near our old home, the booth familiar from simpler times. His hands trembled around his coffee cup as he spoke. "I'm filing for divorce, Sarah. Linda's deceptions, the affair I can't stay." He admitted his weaknesses, eyes wetting. "I've been spineless, letting her favor Megan while ignoring you. I failed you and I'm ashamed." His words pierced the acknowledgement I'd craved for years, stirring a tight throat. "I just need you to show up now, Dad," I replied, voice thick. He nodded, vowing to rebuild, though I knew it'd take time, small steps, not grand fixes. Megan's therapy stumbled. She skipped sessions until the judge threatened jail, forcing compliance. Linda, drained by costs, couldn't shield her like before, even selling jewelry to scrape by a far cry from her lavish ways. Jason called to check in, his tone steady. "They're reaping what they sowed, Sarah. You did, right standing firm." His words grounded me, a reminder of support beyond the core mess. Life edged toward stability. The order held Megan's antics, ceasing for now. Linda and Megan's fade from social scenes felt permanent, their names dropping from conversations. Dad began reaching out more texts about my day, coffee invites, a tentative bridge. The emotional toll eased frustration, giving way to quiet satisfaction in the justice served. At 60 or older, you might see the value in such measured reckonings where truth enforces change without chaos. It wasn't perfect, but the dynamic that had choked us was fraying, clearing path for my future unshadow. A year after the turmoil in Boise, around 2026, my life had transformed into one of quiet freedom. That following year brought a gentle shift, with me turning 29, no longer weighed by the old family shadows. The drama's echoes faded, allowing space to breathe and build anew. Dad and I forged a tentative harmony rooted in clear boundaries I'd set. Forgiveness came for his long silence, his enabling of Linda's tilt toward Megan, but it wasn't blanket, it carried limits. We'd meet sporadically, often at a small Boise diner, the aroma of fresh coffee grounding our talks. "I'm working on it, Sarah," he'd say softly, his earnestness showing in small ways. I'd nod, valuing the effort, but keep conversations brief. Updates on my job, his new hobbies, nothing too deep to risk old hurts resurfacing. The trust we'd lost didn't rebuild overnight. I guarded my heart, ensuring space for my own growth. Linda and Megan, meanwhile, vanished from our Boise circles. Post-court and social tumble, they packed up and relocated to a quiet town, hours away, word spreading swiftly in our close community. Neighbors buzzed about Linda's affair, Megan's arrest, sealing their outcast status. Friends who'd once attended Linda's gatherings stopped calling her charm, falling flat in fresh soil. Megan still navigating therapy, severed ties with everyone, including me, their absence, a relief like a persistent cloud finally dispersing. Jason's call reinforced it. They're struggling to restart. You held your ground, Sarah. His firm support reminded me I wasn't isolated in the fallout. Life turned forward. Michael and I dove into wedding plans for the coming spring at a cozy Boise venue. Evenings passed, picking flowers, sampling cakes, his teasing warm. You're stuck with me now. We'd stroll parks, cool air, brushing our faces, envisioning a home built on respect and love. My marketing career flourished, a recent promotion adding stability, while Michael's match solidifying our foundation. We weren't flawless, but our partnership felt secure, untouched by past chaos. Reflecting back, hard lessons emerged. Family ties don't excuse disrespect. Boundaries, even with loved ones, prove vital. Linda and Megan's pushes favoring her, chasing Michael. Ignoring my value brought repercussions they couldn't dodge: social exile, fractured bonds, a humbling reset. Their downfall proved actions echo back, often quietly but surely. My strength grew from that stand, choosing peace over their storm. For years, I'd chased approval from those who undervalued me, but now I grasped my worth, stood alone. To all who followed this tale, thank you. Your comments, shared struggles mean everything. It's reassuring knowing others face similar family knots and emerge stronger. Sharing has healed me, releasing the ache to embrace what's ahead. I hope it echoes for you, perhaps sparking your own boundary setting or stand against unfairness. Your insights fuel me as mine might you. If this resonated, subscribe for more stories. Share with someone in a tough spot and comment your family boundary tales. How did you navigate toxic pulls? Let's keep supporting each other through life's twists. Thanks for joining. It reminds us we're all weaving through this complex, rewarding journey called living. A year on from the Boise upheaval, the dust had settled into a calmer rhythm, leaving me at 29 with a sense of hard-won clarity. The family's tangled threads had unraveled just enough to let light in, freeing me from the constant pull of old grievances. Dad's efforts, though imperfect, built small bridges, those diner coffees and check-in texts, a quiet testament to change. Linda and Megan's distant relocation marked an end to their influence, their social fade, a subtle close to the chapter. Key lessons stood out. Boundaries aren't walls, but lifelines essential, even in blood ties, and disrespect invites its own quiet reckoning. Truth, once aired, reshapes dynamics without needing fanfare. If you've walked similar paths, share in the comments, how did setting limits shift your world? Subscribe for more real-life turns like this.